Let's talk healthy versus unhealthy love.
It's Let's Get Therapy, but this time it's Let's Talk Relationships. I'm Katie G, that is Elisa D, and this is our show, Let's Get Therapy. As you know, Elisa has an advanced degree in psychotherapy and specializes in trauma, PTSD, and addiction. And yes, we have been doing a little mini series on relationships, so let's dive right back into it.
All right, so we talked about healthy versus unhealthy love. There is a difference, and it's important to know the difference. We went through a few different character traits of unhealthy love, and we talked about, just to kind of give a little recap, feeling consumed in a relationship, that is unhealthy love. I know we all love that first experience in a relationship where you're infatuated and you want to be with the person all the time, but if you are 100% consumed with that person, no bueno. You need to detach a little bit. Also, being extremely afraid to let go of that person because maybe you're afraid of rejection, or you're afraid or don't trust what they might do when you're not around. Really important to be able to let them go a little bit, to have their independence, room for them to grow. Another one, super important, allow them to grow. You don't want them to stay stuck as who they were when they met you. Everyone should have the opportunity to grow and flourish. And if you're not able to do that inside of a relationship, you may be in an experience where it's unhealthy love. So that's a little recap. Thoughts, Katie?
Yeah, well, so you just kind of touched on something, speaking about somebody's past, right? One of my favorite things that my dad has ever said is that we all have a book, and there's a couple of pages in that book that you wish you could glue together that no one could ever read.
Right.
Everybody has that. And if you're saying you don't, you're lying. But with the relationships, people make mistakes, and sometimes that can mess with the trust aspect of it.
Right.
What would you say to someone that might be having trouble overcoming that? Like, let's say, this is totally hypothetical, but like, let's say Drew did something at the beginning of our relationship that I'm still having trouble letting go of.
Right.
Is that like a deal breaker? Is that like a trust is killed kind of a thing? Or is that something a relationship two people can work on?
I think it 100% depends on what the offense was, first of all, because everybody has their different trigger points. Everyone has a different level of what they can handle. So it's really going to depend on how much you feel like you can work on forgiving this person. Has this person hit a nerve that you cannot mend? So I think it's just really individual per couple. And if you find yourself working too hard to forgive that offense, I mean, if it's taking you a year into your relationship and you still can't get over this one thing, you keep bringing it up. Yes. I think it's either time to go to couples counseling, or it's time to maybe call it quits, because that's not fair. That is not fair to the other person. If you keep bringing up this thing that they've totally moved away from, that they've worked on, like, they have really just, they're sorry for whatever they did to you.
It's not going to happen again, kind of a thing.
Right. Then you need to do some work on yourself to kind of let that go if they've done the work. But, if their heart hasn't shifted, that's a different story. So I think it's just so individualized depending on what the circumstances were.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. That's something that we had actually gotten from a listener that is going through this in their relationship. So they were the offender, unfortunately, and the other person in the relationship's kind of struggling to let go of that. So I think that's helpful, either get the help, or maybe it's time to,
Right. And that's okay. And I think that's a really important differential to point out. If somebody comes to me, for example, for couples counseling, I always make sure that they know that my job is not to make sure that they stay together. My job is to make sure that by the end of our sessions together, they're moving forward in their lives in a healthy way. And that might not be together. And that's okay. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Sometimes there's too much pain there, and it's time to say, we're better off as friends, or we're better off not in each other's lives. And it's painful, but that's the risk we run getting into a relationship.
Well, and that goes back to kind of something else that you said. A relationship, we have to remember, it's still two individual people.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't just become one magical person.
No, you don't. And if you are getting into a relationship to become one magical person, don't do it. because that's just not fair to the other person that you're getting into the relationship with. You are counting on them to make you a whole person. And that's not fair because it's never gonna happen. We are meant to be individuals, and this other person that's in a relationship with us is a bonus.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
You my bonus.
You're my bonus.
Okay. I like that a lot.
Another really great piece of advice that I love to give a couples, and actually I can't claim this as my own, all this great relationship advice, I can't claim as my own, but I got this from our marriage counselor when we were going through marriage counseling, is you should be each other's number one fan. So you should be the head of the Drew fan club, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should not be putting our partner down. It's different, maybe a little bit behind closed doors to give each other feedback and, how we can work in relationship better together. But in front of people, you need to be the number one fan of your partner.
Yes, I totally agree. Foam finger, number one. I'm 100 with that, because that you've chosen that person to be your person.
Mm-hmm.
You should treat them as such.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Their biggest fan. I like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be pointing out their flaws in front of other people, or pointing out, how they could have done something better, or making fun of them. I mean, every relationship has their own little, pod of jest, but you have to know how much each person can handle. It should be really an uplifting thing. So if you find yourself being overly critical of your partner, take a step back and look at what's going on in your own heart. Maybe you've built up some resentment that you need to work on.
Okay.
Maybe it's time to take a second and pause from the relationship and figure out, is this the relationship for me? Because that overly critical attitude of your partner is only hurting you, and it's hurting them. And if they can find someone who's not going to criticize them regularly, that's going to be the more loving thing to do.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, because in that situation, that's where your partner's not really your partner anymore. They're just kind of tearing you down at that point.
Yeah, that's right. And, I'm not talking about abusive criticism, because you'll see those couples, and, we all fall into it to a certain extent, where it's like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But you'll see those couples where it's just constant tension, and it's, maybe the husband goes to the bathroom and she tells her girlfriend, I just don't understand why he can't do this, why he can't do that. And it's like that. What's going on for you? Why are you so resentful of your partner that you feel like you have to constantly complain about them instead of working with them on how to improve things?
Right. So exactly. Or even, when there's something wrong, or if there's, I totally guilty, of course, sometimes, why do you do it this way? Sure. Whatever.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll stop, I'll take a step back, and I'll think about, like, how can I constructively talk about this instead of sounding like I was like, you, well, okay, now how can I help you out with this? Or I don't know. I try to make my favorite word with at least my relationship is team. We're a team.
Yes, they should be.
Yeah.
He should be your teammate. That other person should be your teammate. How do we work together as a team? Because again, when you bring two individuals together, two sets of baggage, it's going to look really funky sometimes, and that's okay. But it's, how do you work through it together to be a better team, to get through life as teammates, as a functional team? That's super important. So I love that you brought that up. That's number one.
Yeah, well, and especially considering the year that we've had, we're all kind of, stuck together. None of us know what to do. So we have been having to really put our heads together and go, okay, how are we going to do this without losing our minds?
So you brought up something important, I think, in the way that you step back and try to be more productive in your conversation with your partner. So we talked about this a while ago, but I statements. I statements are important even in your romantic relationship. So I statements would simply be, let's say, for example, I think this is a really common problem, dishes, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's always doing more dishes than the other person. So a really simple way to express your need instead of complaining would be, I feel disrespected when you don't come alongside me and do the dishes. I would love it if you could do the dishes at least 2 nights a week so that I can feel like I have a partner in this situation.
I like that.
So you're just saying this is how this makes me feel. You're not a bad human, but these are the feelings that are coming up for me when I'm the one constantly doing the dishes.
Okay, and by you phrasing it that way, or using the
I statement.
I statements,
Hmm.
it's not like you're pinning it on them. It's not, you never do the dishes.
Exactly.
I feel like, okay, I like that.
And maybe disrespect isn't the thing. That's just the first thing that came to mind. It
Right.
could just be, I am so tired all the time
Hmm.
that I don't have the will to do the dishes. It would be super helpful for me if you could do the dishes half the time.
Okay, it's kind of a weird way of owning it.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. All
Because
right.
behind every complaint, there is a need. Always. If you can step back and go, why am I feeling this way? What do I need? Why do I feel like complaining about this? You can become much more solution focused in every aspect of your life, but specifically in your love life. You want to be solution focused, not nitpicky, not criticizing constantly. You
Mhm.
want to be solution focused.
Yeah, you can't be happy if you're constantly nitpicking or focusing on criticism
Right.
either. That's not a good potion for a happy relationship.
It takes all the joy out of a relationship. And let's face it, the reason you got together with this person was because they brought joy into your life. And then so way too often it just that joy just goes away because you're so focused on what is this person not doing for me? How is this person not serving me? How is this household not functioning in a way that makes me happy? And it becomes about self instead of about the joy of a partnership.
Yeah. And I like something you said earlier too, the whole being able to kind of take a step back and look at each other and say, okay, we're in this together,
Hmm.
you know, and not going against each other. And then also still being able to be your own person. Because earlier you were talking about that relationship where, oh, I just want to be with them all the time. I've always referred to that as like the honeymoon stage.
Totally.
And if you look up the definition of a honeymoon, it's not forever.
No,
Like it just doesn't make
it's like a
it.
week.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't expect your relationship to be all rainbows and unicorns all the time.
Did you know that I can't give you a date on this, but back in the day, in the olden days, and maybe even in like biblical times, they used to take a full year off of their job to be with each other?
Really?
Yes, because there was so much importance placed on that relationship. So, once they got married, they would take a whole year just to be with one another, to learn about each other, to just focus on the important aspects of building a relationship. Also, I think it was much more common to wait to consummate the marriage.
Right.
And
Yes.
so, that was a time where they really got to enjoy each other, enjoy the idea of being married and all that came with it. So I think there's something really sweet to that.
Yeah, they're really, because it's kind of like, okay, it's just us now.
Yeah,
We're
right.
focusing on us. I like that a lot, but I don't see that being
No.
something we can do now, especially with social media and all that. You pretty much know everything about the person beforehand.
It's wild. I think,
Yeah,
though, Katie, I think we know too much about the person beforehand.
I agree with that.
Social media's gotten in the way of that. We are able to scroll through somebody's pictures and go, oh, they went to Hawaii last year. Oh, I see that they were with a pretty girl on October 22nd of 2017. I wonder who that was. None ya. It's none ya business. Like, we
Exactly.
shouldn't know all of that.
I know. It's amazing what social media has kind of done.
Yeah.
I
And
want
then
to go backwards.
you lose the opportunity to share your story on your timeline.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
then it becomes like, I saw this on your social media. What is that all about? Or just those intimate thoughts. Everyone is so used to just, I'm going to put my intimate thoughts out there in a post. And
Right.
it's like,
Mm.
let's have that be part of our story. Let's reveal that slowly to another human. That doesn't
Yeah.
need to be put out there for everyone to know.
Yeah. And communicate it between the two of you, not between you and your 460 friends or whatever on there. Just to kind of wrap it up before we have to go, I want to just kind of double back and kind of just do a little summary of this episode, if you will, Elisa, for those that are tuning in or that are just finding us now on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, I think, most importantly, we are just two people enjoying the conversation about relationships right now. Like Katie said in the beginning, I'm a therapist, and so I have a few little tricks and tips and insights from different couples that I've worked with, or even my own life. And so, but that's really what we're talking about today. And I think today the main focus is, what is unhealthy love? What do we want? How can we allow our partner to grow while we're still in relationship with them? And what is the difference between that infatuation stage and making a long-lasting, meaningful relationship work? And don't criticize your partner, at least not in front of people.
Right. And
be their biggest fan.
And eat the Oreo when you get a chance.
If you eat the Oreo together.
Woo! Little twist off that. It could be, I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, team building.
Together.
Team building. Well, make sure you guys check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It's Let's Get Therapy. We read your comments, your messages, and we try to do an episode each week, but we have lives as well. Things happen.
We're going to get back on it. Don't worry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a great day, guys.
Take care.